Kühne Nagel is a global logistics service provider based in Switzerland with nearly 80,000 employees and a net turnover of around 30 billion euro. We are together with Achim Klaas. Achim Klaas is responsible for the automotive business and the supply chains for the worldwide automotive industry at Kühne Nagel. Mr. Klaas, the trade line between Germany and China is of great importance for the automotive industry. Currently, we face lockdowns in Shanghai. Can you please give us a status report on what the situation looks like today?
Shanghai is a very important automotive location and has been for many, many years. The current lockdown in Shanghai affects approximately 25% of all air cargo capacity out of Greater China. We still have a very challenging situation in Shanghai as well as in other Chinese airports. Trucking services is affected heavily due to extreme quarantine measures in the city. Airlines continue to cancel flights into Shanghai.
So airlines are typically changing their schedule for summer to cater for expected increase in passenger travel. Will that possibly have an impact on the logistics?
The announced summer schedule for so-called international wide-body belly capacity shows that capacity will be 28% below summer 2019 level, so below pre-COVID level. That is very alarming because freighters today account for 43% of all capacity. At the same time, the so-called passenger belly capacity, so the passenger flights, which pre-COVID accounted for almost half of the total capacity, is now reduced to only 33%. That is very bad.
So what is the associated implications for the supply chains of the automotive industry?
Well, as always, reduced capacity unfortunately result in higher freight rates. In addition to that, longer lead times, and it significantly increases the complexity of material planning for inbound supply chains for automotive.
So on the one hand, we have the aircraft industry or the aircraft, and on the other hand, we have the sea freight. What is the situation in the sea freight? I heard some things don't look good either.
Yeah, well, we need to remember that Shanghai is one of the most busiest container ports in the world. And congestion has actually doubled since the beginning of the lockdown 3 weeks ago. There are currently over 500 container vessels waiting outside of Chinese ports to enter. That is almost 1/3 of all vessels currently waiting globally. The lack of tracking capacity is the limiting factor, Mr. Dudenhöffer. Port congestion at Shanghai has been rising gradually since the lockdown was imposed, but there are signs that it remains under control as the number of ships waiting to enter the ports have reduced over the course of the last weeks, as carriers were actually omitting Shanghai calls due to the drop of export volumes. Nevertheless, automotive factories production started again in Shanghai this week, which eventually could lead to a sudden surge in export cargo again.
Let's look also a little bit on the longer term perspectives. Globalization is one of the most important competitive advantages for car makers and suppliers. What do you see as the three most important challenges and issues for global logistics, let's say within the next 10 years?
My top three challenges, which are challenges which will stay over the next couple of years, are number one, resilience. Increasing the resilience of international supply chains in order to be better prepared for disruptions of any kind. This includes, for example, nearshoring to reduce long international supply chains, the diversification in the sourcing strategy to reduce the dependency on Asia, or extending the risk management beyond parts and components and include raw material into the assessment. Number two is sustainability. The global pandemic has shaken up the world, but above all, it has emphasized the urgency for sustainable behavior and actions. The transportation sector generates the largest share of greenhouse gas emissions. We at Kühne and Nagel are committed to reducing our contribution to the emissions caused by logistics. Beyond decarbonization, so decarbonizing supply chains, we are driving many other sustainability initiatives, such as replacing conventional packaging materials with bio-based or paper-based or compostable materials, or setting performance goals for our global water consumption. And the third challenge, which is here to stay, is digitalization. As per one of the latest PwC studies, the digital supply chain consists of 8 key elements, such as integrated planning and execution, smart warehousing, autonomous logistics, or prescriptive supply chain analytics. Digital logistics solutions allow businesses to be more productive, lower their costs, and solve problems more efficiently.
So digitalization is a key success factor for the logistic service providers. How important will digitalization be to stabilize logistics in a world of more and more unexpected events like, for example, the Ukraine crisis, war, via, for example, cloud computing and other issues?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the key to success for any supply chain is the efficient exchange of information. The traditional supply chain is exposed to friction caused primarily, as you just mentioned, lack of timely information. As discussed earlier, potential for disruption is very, very high. Natural disasters, sudden shifts in demand, lack of raw materials, etc. The fact that there are so many players involved in expediting a shipment only makes it harder to understand the supply chain in full. It is in fact foggying visibility into the supply network and makes it difficult to anticipate and to mitigate problems. That's why the overarching goal of the digital supply chain is to open the supply network for all to see. Business to consumer markets are pulling companies along to provide this level of visibility, yes, demanding more information about shipment arrivals with real-time updates. Gaining a high degree of transparency into the system is no easy task, requiring both technical sophistication and a fair degree of intelligent human intervention. Eventually, machine learning algorithms will offer mitigation advice, and proven routine solutions from the past will become smart enough to automate even this kind of human intervention.
So do you have an example from Kühne and Nagel how you track and trace all the things you are moving between and along the supply chain?
The ability to track and trace movements of supplies and products through the transportation system has evolved significantly over the years. Thanks to new technologies, they are increasing reach across the globe and falling prices. RFID and Bluetooth technologies are used to inventory and to track movement of service parts in our aftermarket warehouses. And on selected automotive power lanes on the transatlantic, readable sensor tags are attached to time-critical production material to capture impact, temperature, and humidity conditions besides the physical location of the shipment. We implemented required infrastructure such as antennas at Atlanta Airport, or providing special tablets with respective software to trucking companies executing the last mile delivery.
So global logistics is very important for the car industry, for the supply chains, and we will focus that, of course, at the next car symposium. Achim will be with us, and he will report about and on next generation supply chain at Kühne Nagel, but also in the industry, a big issue that will overall shift from traditional vehicles to new energy vehicles. That means the environmental issue is very important. Looking forward to our logistics specials at the next car symposium.